Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hi. Our guests will be here shortly. One's waiting backstage. But I wanted to go live, right? Just a smidge, a couple minutes early. Kind of explain what's going on, explain content going forward, etc. So next week, so Monday through Friday next week, I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be on vacation. So you won't see a stream next week. Not from me, at least. I'll still be active on Twitter and stuff like that, and I might say hi in Discord once in a while. But for the most part, I'm going to be spending time with friends and family in Florida. So you won't see me. But I'll still love you. So don't think I've abandoned you. Don't think I've left you out to be eaten alive by dogs. No, I'm simply going to be on vacation. So that's what's going on. Oh, and we got a lot to talk about. Tomorrow I might do a call-in show. Depends on how I'm feeling. Or tomorrow I should say I should do a call-in show depending on how I'm feeling. Where you guys could talk to me and things like that. But yeah, if you guys want to throw me some extra dollars tonight and tomorrow my way to help me have fun on vacation, I wouldn't mind it. Okay, I wouldn't mind it. I promise all the money's gonna go to whatever I want. Cool. Tonight we've got a great show for you guys. Okay, we're going to be talking about quite a few things. We're going to be talking about American interventionism in Latin America, the history of that, and if we should continue, etc., like that. And we're also going to be talking about the cartels and what should be done about them and why they are a problem. We're going to get into it. We have it's a one-on-one debate between DITSO and Admiral Gibbs. And we'll get to it. Let me bring in Admiral Gibbs. I don't know where Ditso is. Hopefully he gets here soon. But we'll bring in the Admiral. How you doing, buddy?
We're recovering. We're living the dream. Ready to hand out some whoopings today.
Some whoopings, huh? Okay, well, we'll see how that goes. Give me a second. Let me change what everyone can see on here. So they can see you.
We're gonna see how it goes, all right. Listen,
we still got a couple
right now. Can you hear me all right?
You're a little low.
How about now? Is that better?
Yes, much better. Much better.
That's good. Yeah, we will see we will see it in real time. We're gonna treat Ditso here like America treats Latin America and South America. Ass whoopings all the time when we want to get them out.
Okay. Yeah, it should be fun. Should be interesting. I'm excited to host this. Here we go. Hello, you're live.
Yo.
Yeah, so just get your stuff up, get your stuff ready. We still got a couple minutes, right, before it was 6 o'clock, right? So people are still kind of getting into the chat, into the things. But yeah, how you doing, Ditso? How's it going?
So good.
Yeah, I'm just asking you so I can see how your mic sounds, honestly.
Is it good? We're good?
So far, so good, at least for me.
All right, perfect.
We might adjust it as we go. So just to let everyone know what the topic it is tonight, we're going to be talking about American interventionism in Latin America, its history, whether it's been effective, ineffective, whether we should do it more, do it less, etc. We're also going to be talking about the cartels, who is responsible for the cartels, what should be done about the cartels, what, yeah, stuff like that. But I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. I'd like to thank both Admiral Gibbs and Ditso for agreeing to come on my show and talk about this with us. And yeah, if you like this kind of content, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I have links to these individuals. Ditso, you need to give me a link to like some kind of, I don't know.
I haven't been in social
media
until now. I'm getting back. No. I don't know.
I just feel bad not having a link for you, but there's just
it's fine. I'm kind of like a weird dude. I don't even have a phone.
Okay.
Just to tell you that. The last 4 or 5 years. Yeah. I decided not to have a phone anymore. Even my contacts know that I'm like the government. Send me an email and I'll respond in 24 to 48 hours.
Fair enough. Well, thanks for being here. We're going to get into it. But first and foremost, I want to give each of these lovely individuals a chance to have opening statements on the topic. And again, it's one-on-one, so we have plenty of time. I'm not going to be so strict with cutting people off and things like that. Also, if any of you have issues and feel like you're being talked over, just let me know and we can try to fix that. But in general, I'm going to give both of you a lot more latitude than I normally do in terms of moderation. Just please don't drop a bunch of F-bombs and F-slurs. I don't want to get banned like poor Rob Nor and poor Counter. But other than that, let's get this party started. Admiral Gibbs, why don't you go first?
Sure.
Give us your opening statement and tell people who you are.
I'm Admiral Gibbs. This is the first debate of my next 9 hours of debate marathon that we got going on. You're going to see me here at Wix. We're going to be doing Debate Championship Series at 7:30, back-to-back shows, and then we're going to be doing Emily Charlie's Debate Royale. So if you like debates, check me out today. Thanks for having me, Wick. First time I ever came on a Wick panel, we actually had a similar topic. It was about the border and cartels, and I wanted to give a little bit of a history lesson going in, but Wick shut me down. He said, we don't need a history lesson. So I'm really glad when I asked Wick today if we were going to have time for openings, if we could do some little history, because I have a history lesson for you, and I've created. Originally, I prepared for a different debate over the utter failure of leftism in Central and South America. However, I threw something together for this debate. It seems that DITSO, and by extension Wick, here want me to discuss the utter success that is Pax Americana and the Monroe Doctrine. So I guess I'll just have to include some of my original points within this topic. First, let's talk about the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine holds that any intervention in the political affairs of the Americas by foreign powers is potentially a hostile act against the United States. Originally, this was referring to foreign European powers, but as we are the preeminent superpower and really the only power that matters, the Monroe Doctrine is really now just one facet of base American imperialism and interventionism. But before moving on, I think it's important to address a little bit of the topic I'd originally prepared for, which is the utter failure of leftists in Latin and South American countries, because there's a direct overlap. So I know how much leftists and Wick here hate history lessons, but Papa Gibbs is going to drop some knowledge on you. The last time in history that Latin American countries in Central and South America have been successful by any remote metric was after being conquered by the European powers, specifically in areas controlled by the very conservative Catholic Spanish. Before that, the bloodthirsty Aztecs had ruled with an iron fist, having mass sacrifices and using the bodies to make pozole. No surprise that the Native Americans there rose up against those guys and embraced the Spanish. And the Incas, who were also brutal conquerors before they got bodied by the Spanish, who then had a successful time ruling the New World for a while. After we begin to see the sickness that is leftism rooting these countries, let's just talk about some of the wonderful leftist historical figures in Latin American history. Che Guevara and the Castros are known worldwide for their fantastic record on human rights. Even now, the people of Cuba, in hopes to escape the brutal regime established there, flee to America. Don't worry, Wick, the brief history lesson I'm giving now is moving on to the part that directly covers what you set out the topic as. Let's talk about another famous politician from Latin American and South American history, one who actually helped found the Liberal Party of Colombia, a man who has become almost deified and gained sainthood South America-wide for his acts of philanthropy. This man spent millions building housing complexes, parks, football stadiums, hospitals, and schools, and churches. That man is the wonderful, saintly Pablo Escobar. Escobar entered into politics in the 1980s and participated and supported the formation of the Liberal Party of Colombia. In 1982, he successfully entered the Colombian Congress, although only as an alternate. He was automatically granted parliamentary
immunity. You're muted on your stream.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's all right. They can all tune into Wix and get some of this whooping that's getting handed out. Thank you. But anyway, he automatically granted parliamentary immunity and the right to jump out of passport under Colombian law. At the same time, Escobar was gradually becoming a public figure, and because of his charitable, he was known as the Robin Hood Paisa. This man, for all intents and purposes, started the drug war, invented the brand of cartel violence we are familiar with today. Hell, he even backed communists to take over their Supreme Court. Imagine if a member of the Democrats or Republicans decided to become drug dealers and use that wealth to fund, back, and arm communists to take over the U.S. Supreme Court. What would the fallout be? Would we call that a success? Oh, Gibbs, you're being bad faith. You haven't mentioned the banana republics at all. Oh my God! How could I forget the banana republics? Don't worry, I got something for that too. Have you been to the store today? I actually went to the store today and took a photo. Here, I'm going to share it with y'all. Let me share it. See if Wick would be so kind to find this photo. Here it is. It is right here.
You can stream
There?
it. You can.
Yeah, I'm
stream
gonna
in
share it
channel
here.
and I'll pull it up.
Oh, I appreciate it. This right here is the photo I took. I don't know if y'all can see that. But that is bananas. Yeah. You see that? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Okay, we can stop sharing that now. I don't know if you saw what price that was. Let me pull my notes back up here. Pull right back up. Oh, wow! 52 cents for bananas. Banana Republic's bad. More like Banana Republic's based. Hold on, let me get my soyest lefty voice, right? But what about the people there that suffered? Boo-hoo. Wow. Well, I could got 5 words for them. Fuck them. Build the wall, because not our problem. American imperialism achieved its goal. In fact, this leads me into my final major point of my opening.
Thank God.
Last panel I was on with DITSO, he made the argument that Mexico was the successful country. Well, Mexico is so successful that he can't argue that cartels exist because of the U.S. Those points contradict. If U.S. caused cartels to dominate Mexico, then Mexico isn't successful. So which is it? Also, we know that Mexico isn't above using violence. Look at Arguel's Mexico's most famous and successful leader, Santa Anna. This man claimed he was a leftist, a libre, and whatever else he needed, a liberal, and whatever else he needed in order to gain power and stay in power. Because like all real leftists, his goal is to increase power for himself while taking it away from the average citizen. We know he liked to use violence to achieve his goals. Look at the Texas Revolution. Look at any of the other times he was in power. Is DITSO with a straight face going to sit here and tell me all the people living in the areas conquered by the U.S. during Manifest Destiny in the Mexican-American War aren't supremely better off than they would be under Mexican rule? The answer is obviously and unequivocally not. In fact, Mexico has been inept due to its corrupt leftist tendencies since day one. They couldn't handle Native American raids by the Comanche and Apache during their existence, nor do they have success with Pancho Villa. Corruption has been baked into Latin American countries from the start, and Mexico is the perfect example of this. Sinaloa has basically become fully under the control of the cartels, with their own cartel-covered, controlled governor for decades. It got so bad in Mexico that the PRI, which was basically the de facto ruling party for Mexico for most of the 20th century, starting in 1929 onward, became basically just an extension of the cartels, with their secret police of the PRI even being used as cartel hitmen. It's crazy. The cartels are products of these countries' own faults, and the U.S. should take zero blame for them. I could go on and on about other examples of this throughout Latin America and South America, but according to DITSO, Mexico is the golden example of this, so there's no need. Every time the United States has intervened in these countries, we have accomplished our goals. It's not our fault. These countries are weak, inept, and corrupt. It's not our responsibility to hold their hands and pouting their little bottoms like little babies so they can continue to exist. Let people like DITSO point and say, oh, it's the U.S.'s fault, using us as a scapegoat instead of turning that lens on themselves to scan their real issues. I, for one, will not apologize for U.S. success. In fact, the only time we failed is when we've given stuff back, like in Panama, with Jimmy Carter's borderline treasonous decision to give it back. I got one more sentence, Rick. In conclusion, American imperialism, interventional and based, cartels are at our fault, and the one who says otherwise is a whiny baby-back leftist cuck. The walls are clearly working. We've had areas for the first time in our history with zero gotaways under Governor Abbott and Operation Lone Star, as well as backing of President Trump. Clearly, this is a problem for Latin America, not ours, and now they just want to bitch about it instead of having to take responsibility. Pathetic.
So, when I say I'm going to be lenient on my moderation and let you guys go a little longer,
I'm done. That was all I had.
Maybe I need to be a little more strict on the time limits. I thought you guys would be reasonable.
It was 2.5 minutes, by the way. I had a timer up.
It was.
I know you just don't like history as a
2.5 minutes. But go ahead, DITSO. Tell people who you are. Your opening thoughts on this subject. Go ahead, please.
Thank you for having me, Wick. It's a pleasure having and having this conversation in this moment. I'm 43 years old. I'm a geopolitical analyst in Costa Rica, living in Costa Rica. I work issues of human rights as well as drug policy reform. One of my major works has been the legalization of medicinal cannabis through the legislative means in Costa Rica. Also contributed in 5 different other countries in Latin America to push forward their own legislation in regards of medicinal cannabis and drug policy reform. But to start with this, unfortunately, we see right now that there was no historical analysis into what has happened in regards of United States interventionism, exceptionalism, destiny manifest, Monroe Doctrine. Now, let's be frank. United States has failed systematically, especially and particularly in the last almost 80 years after the end of the war. If we talk about the systematic failures of United States interventionism, has been Vietnam, for example, Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq, and now one of the major pinnacles of that failure is the war on drugs. This war on drugs started in the Nixon administration 71. And this administration, especially and particularly after the representative of UN quit and George Bush, who eventually would have become president, was the leader pushing forward through the United Nations. This took the opportunity of what was happening in the United Nations in the reforms of the opium conventions towards the three international conventions that are now today governing this whole ideology of the drug war. To be frank, the problem resides on three major facts. One, it's a one policy fits all through the United Nations via the United States or the so-called American PACs or the American interventionism. This has sustained in the last 60 years this continuous war on drugs that, yes, we can agree that the leaders in Latin America were too naive and too stupid to follow the idiocy of the United States in this particular subject. One that has created, one that has created and aggravated the worsening conditions in my region of America. This being realistic is in complete and utter fault of all the presidents from Nixon onwards to today, Trump. That means at least the last 14, almost 15 presidents. Now we're on the 15th president since that era. And there's no exception. This has been a bipartisan problem um, from United States that has contaminated all our areas, impacting areas like economy, like political stability, health, and violence in that sense. All those problems then translate to one one particular issue that is of concern of the U.S. citizen is the irregular migration towards your borders. One of the reasons people are uh, exiting their countries is because the war on drugs and the violence and all those problems that surround that war on drugs make happen in their particular areas. So let's be frank. Destiny Manifest and Monroe Doctrine are terroristic approaches of foreign policy of the U.S. imperialism. There's no doubt that it's a criminal behavior, one that clearly shows the lack of accountability by the U.S. and its foreign policies throughout the last 200 years, and more particularly in the almost 80 years of the since the end of the war up to today. On that frank note, let's look at one aspect of this sense. When the towers got hit, we told the United States through the OAS that an attack on one American country is an attack on all American countries. And that established one of the principal tools you have utilized, or the United States has utilized to fight terrorism, which is the Inter-American Convention Against Terrorism through the OAS, or the Organization of American States, which was ratified by the majority of the 35 nations here in the Western Hemisphere. This particularly pertains to our relation between us, Western Hemisphere. This being said, your country lied to us in regards of Iraq, and your country went and invaded Iraq. And what are the weapons of mass destruction? Nowhere. So how can you then tell us that it has been such a successful on regards of interventionism of the United States when you have based your foreign policy on systematic lies, and you have based your presence and your power on the subjugation and aggravation of our own internal problems. Not only that, but contributing to them and making them even worse. Of course, this isn't a question of left or right. This is a question of the impacts of policy. Because fact of the matter is, if you look at, for example, the interdictions of drugs via Venezuela, since the era of Chavez, last 25 years, systematically Venezuela, a leftist government, has interdicted anywhere between 24 to 40 tons of drugs each year for the past 25 years. Not only that, but if we look at, for example, what was happening in the leftist governments, Latin America, Dilma Rousseff, Lula da Silva, Rafael Correa, etc., all of them co-participated into the war on drugs. So frankly, the war on drugs represents one of the major pinnacles of failure of U.S. foreign policy, and it clearly shows to us that the United States treats worse their allies than their enemies, and they do so in a corrupt, terroristic form that has aggravated, and again I say this, and has contributed to the aggravation of our own internal problems here in Latin America. That without the interventionism of the United States, we may have had better opportunities of resolving our own particular issues. And you bitch and cry about so-called illegal immigrants without even assuming that one of the major reasons why those people are migrating towards the United States has to do with the impacts of your foreign policy in our own respective countries in Latin America. So to all frank, in every frank way possible, one, there was no historical review of how the war on drugs has been implemented throughout the whole region. There has not been any historical review of the impacts of foreign policy in the United States. And to add, as a Costarricense, and with this I finish, I will invoke the William Walker affair of 1850, early 1850s to 1857, where William Walker, a Tennessee-born lawyer, took it upon himself to come invade Mexico, Nicaragua, becoming president of Nicaragua, foreign citizen president of Nicaragua, and then here in Costa Rica. And if it wasn't for us, Ticos, that criminal would have been successful in invading us and then making us the slaves they needed for the South.
Okay.
3 years the Civil War happened, and proudly we say we supported the North against the South, and we did everything possible to destroy the Southern heritage and to destroy the Southern states because they owed us that debt of blood that they paid. With that, I finish.
Okay. Wow, a lot's been said, a lot's been talked about. One of the major, I guess, at least to me, themes that you seem to have brought up, DITSO, is the war on drugs. And so let's talk about that. I want to give Admiral Gibbs first shot at this one, right?
I just want to clarify a question.
Go ahead.
Was 1949? I know leftists. I know y'all don't like to actually look at history, and that's why we're doomed to repeat it anytime leftists get in power. But let me ask you a question: is 1949 before or after the war on drugs started? I'm not sure. I'm just an idiot from the backwoods. Can you clarify that for me?
Sure. First clarification, Gibbs, I am not a leftist.
You are a leftist. You said liberal. It doesn't
not.
matter to me. If you're leftist Cindy or leftist me, I don't give a shit. I don't need to call your special snowflake name. But listen, is 1949 before the war on drugs? Yes or no?
Yeah. 1949.
Okay, cool. Well, then all you have to say is bullshit. Because look, I'm not even going all the way back. We can look at 1949. You know what 1949 is? That's the start of the Cuban Revolution. Oh, so I guess that we didn't have anything to do. The war on drugs didn't have anything to do with that. You know, we got Che Guevara going capping people in the back of the head. We got not cartels. We got Castro running wild. We just had the Cold War going. I mean, it's really simple. Leftism and liberalism, all these things with left to center, these are the major problems. They've made inept governments that are corrupt and oppress their people. Then they would have sit here and turned and point at the United States. He goes, oh, we didn't get what we wanted. We should be worried. I granted that these immigrants may have problems because of what we did. But guess what? American imperialism and interventionism is based, as long as we get what we want, it doesn't matter what happens to these people. Sucks to suck, get better, get good.
Okay, hold on. Let me just do this. First, Gibbs, The Cuban Revolution was 59. You were 10 years
Oh,
behind.
59. Yeah, you're right.
Let's
Sorry.
let's
I misspoke.
on that
But was it,
sense.
that's hold on, you're right. Okay, it's 59
hold
before.
on, hold
Okay,
on,
Let
hold on.
Tito
Gibbs,
go. Let Tito go. Go
Gibbs,
again.
Is it before the war on drugs?
Okay,
49. I said
hold
59.
on,
49
hold
instead
on,
of 59. You got
hold
me.
on,
Oh no,
hold on.
I misspoke. But
Okay,
my point is it
so
before the war on drugs? Yes or no?
it's
Let Tito go.
this
Go
is
ahead.
an evidence. This
It
is
is
an
before the war on
evidence
drugs.
that
Just to be clear.
your so-called misspoke. You're clearly launching yourself from a biased position, and you have not done any form
Correct
of
position.
research whatsoever in this sense. Now,
Oh,
you
because
bringing
I
up the
mixed that 59 and 49.
hold on. Yes, because it clearly shows that you are not parting from a objective analysis of history. And your bias against leftism, against somebody who has
No, this
fought
is a
against
destiny debate mode tactic where you go, oh, you made a small
Let Tito
mistake.
finish, and then you can
59,
respond. I
49.
promise.
Sure.
Tito,
Look,
go ahead.
Gibbs, I know your tactics. You love to interrupt because it's your way of
I'll wait.
filibustering a conversation in
Go
this sense. So, okay, first, the Cuban Revolution was in 59. This evidence to me shows one simple fact. You have not done your research. What I establish is in two parameters. One, from the end of the war up to today, the systematic failures throughout all the foreign policy of the United States, yes, mentioning in some examples like Vietnam, Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq, just to give some examples. But then I also establish a delimitation of the last 60 some odd years, particularly starting from 71 with Nixon starting the war on drugs and the influence it had throughout the at that time, the two conventions, the international conventions that were ratified through all the land of Latin America. From 71 up to today, we have the modern day war on drugs led through the foreign policy of the United States in influence with the United Nations, particularly with the Office of Drugs and Crimes of the United Nations. And then you have the third international convention on 88 that if you knew something about it, you would understand what those three conventions refer to and how they applied as a one policy fits all. If you look at all the anti-drug policies throughout Mexico up to Argentina and in places in the Caribbean, you will see that all major legislation in regards to anti-drug originate from the ratification of those three conventions. So all laws behave exactly in the same particular way. And just to conclude on this, it's infantile that you have no clue that somebody like me can criticize right, left, center in regards of the effects of policy and when they were in power, how they continued those particular policies. Look, I lived through the coup of Chavez in 92. I lived through the destruction of the Fourth Republic and the so-called birth of the Fifth Republic in Venezuela. I've lived through the car bombs of FARC in Colombia. You're bitching about, I'm sorry, you're complaining about the leftism only tells me that you have one capability, one very minute capability is understanding the lens of political analysis through your um, bipartisan US defaultism. The world doesn't work or revolve around you or your country. The world revolves around sovereignty, the capability of finding our own ways of cooperating and at the same time, uh, doing what we can to fix our own particular issues. But that has been made difficult because your country has constantly and systematically like the noisy neighbor been in our business for a long time.
I'm going to let Gibbs respond to that, and then I have a question to maybe move us a little forward. Go ahead, Gibbs.
Sure. Thank you. First of all, once again, all right, I misspoke. I said 49, 59. But here's the thing. Even if I did misspoke, let me just prove that leftists are lying because the actual invasion of Cuba by Che Guevara was in 1956 in the Battle of Alguira de Pio. So, yeah, I got the record. So this guy, I'm not going to sit here and do debate mode shit.
59.
Hold on. Shh, I'm
Revolution.
talking now. We can sit here. I'm not going to debate, bro, pull the pussy, Andrew Wilson, or Destiny Tactic, where I try to nitpick over arguing over, oh, he said one date through the line. I'm not going to do that. But the point is, this happened before the war on drugs. Second, as for my research, I went back all the way to the fucking Aztecs and Incas and described how shit went all the way through in different events and how the PRI in Mexico, I don't know, might have heard of them. They were in power since 1929 and they used their secret police in conjunction with cartels. I exposed all this. We talked about Pablo Escobar. We didn't even need to talk about Venezuela because they're a failed fucking state. He goes, wow, they're successful. They stopped drugs. Yeah, at the same time, have Cuban death squads running around on their streets killing people because their government's so inept they can't even use their own soldiers to kill people. That's how inept they are. They have to hire Cubans, mercenaries from Castro to do it. So this is once again leftism in general failing and committing mass atrocities across Central and South America. Yeah, so as far as who didn't do their research, it's not me. It's the guy who lived there because he thinks his special lens of living there gives him some great nuanced, wow, I'm high on the mountain perspective. When reality is leftism has caused the cartels to run rampant. It's not the U.S.'s fault. It's ineptitude, leftism, and corruption, which seems to be baked into Latin American, South American cultures.
Okay, you can respond to that real quick, but again, I have a question.
Yeah. In very simple terms, clearly shows that Gibbs is incapable of addressing the core issues that have been exposed here. He jumps into, I heard his comment in regards of the Aztecs, which I will not entertain because it's a complete and utter revisionism that has nonsense whatsoever. But let's address the core of the issue. The core of the issue is the war on drugs, how it has been implemented, and what has been the impacts on that. I could bring up the Plan Colombia, the failed Plan Colombia, the failed Initiative Merida, as two major examples, particularly the era of Felipe Calderon. And just to say something, his judgment in regards to Mexico tells me he has no fucking clue of the culture in any way, shape, form, or manner. He does not understand the cultural elements.
And what's the historical fact that I say that was wrong? Was the PRI in control and basically a de facto arm of the cartels? Yes or no? If you say anything other than yes, then you're lying. You lied. We have tons of history proving that they were. We know the Sinaloa governor was
PRI. What's PRI?
What is the PRI? You tell me. You're the
Partido Revolucionario Institucional. Are you talking about the Partido Revolucionario Institucional, el PRI?
Yeah, go ahead. The Mexican government basically was controlled by one specific party. What was that from the 1929 on? What was the party?
Are you talking about the Partido Revolucionario Institucional de México?
I mean, you tell me. I mean, you should know. This is a basic knowledge of Mexico. I mean, look, are you confused?
Again, you're saying PRI, but you're not specifying what PRI are you talking about in Mexico.
Well, why don't you? Well, I mean, I've given enough examples contextually. You should be able to figure it out. I don't know how you're confused about this.
Okay, no. First, what you're doing is you're nitpicking particular situations in regards of I'm focusing on the macro sense of the whole situation in reality. For example, in Mexico, you had a bipartisan system, particularly post-war, that was
not from 1946 onwards. That's fake. That's fake news. That's revisionist history and a lie. So try again.
No.
Okay, so was there more than one party in control from 1946 to 1988? Yes or no? This is just history. This is facts. This is not even disputed facts by anybody worldwide. So yes or no, was the PRI in control of Mexico directly from 1946 to 1988? Oh, I don't have to do it.
There were two presidents.
I know that.
Why are you focusing only on Mexico?
Well, you're the one who said Mexico was the golden example last time. And we can go into the worst examples if you want.
So you're telling me, okay, so can you name, without looking in Google, can you name to me at least 5 presidents of Mexico? In that
what is this like? Are you asking a girl her favorite band and then asking her to name 5 songs?
Dude,
can you name
if
5
you're so
songs?
history, you should be able to name at least 5 presidents during that period of time.
Well, I live near Texas. I could probably name you the last 60 presidents of Mexico, even though they didn't have 60. That's the point here. It's racist,
mention 3.
Stupid, ticky-tacky debate
right now.
tactics. How about my left ball sack, my right ball sack, and answer the question? 1946 to 1988. Who was in control of Mexico? What party? It's really this simple. The reason why he's avoiding this question and trying to do this, I'm a guy at the bar tactic, where he goes, name 5 bands, is because he doesn't have an answer. That's why he tried to switch to Venezuela, where Venezuela's a failed state. This is just
what was the difference between Lázaro Cárdenas del Río, who left office in the 40s,
Well, who was this?
between
Was
Manuel Ávila
Pablo Escobar
Camacho,
a
Miguel
leader in the
Alemán
liberal
Let
Valdés,
him ask the
party of,
question. Go ahead.
Colombia?
So
Please answer my question. I mean, that's what I
on
want
this
to know.
sense, for example, the PRI, the party that you're talking about, which lasted between I would say 30s up till late 40s, did not rule as a one party. You had the PAN, which was a secondary party that kept on winning or gaining aspects on Congress and on Senate within Mexico in itself, as well as the so-called. So for the period of the war period, or particularly uh, the interim of war and then war, particularly First to Second World War. You had people like Lázaro Cárdenas del Río, Manuel Ávila Camacho, Miguel Alemán Valdés, Adolfo Ruiz Cortines, amongst others, that governed that area of Mexico, or were able to obtain the presidency of Mexico. But the change that you start seeing it, especially with the election of Felipe Calderón, National Action Party, on '06 of the beginning of this decade, you start seeing that mobilization of politics that happened in Mexico that culminated with the election of last president Andrés Manuel López Obrador. But that's, I mean, you've just diverted this whole conversation
Can I respond to this?
into this aspect of it. Hold on.
No.
My point being here is that we're talking about the impacts of the drug policy. So, in this sense, I want to ask you one simple thing.
Yes.
How is it that your country, in the last 60 years, has not been able to stop the drugs? It has not even captured the cartels of your own citizens who are getting the drugs from Latin America, demand and offer, who then distribute throughout people who are of all races, but mainly white people in many senses. They control the cartels in the United States. So, in that sense, here's the question.
Yes. Yeah. Pablo Escobar, white person.
4.1 trillion US dollars of your own
El
taxpayer
Chapo,
money
white guy.
spent,
Famously white.
spending money of all this in the last 60 years, and it has been the exact same failure as the 18th Amendment when you apply the provision of liquor inside your country. So the question is, why hasn't your country been successful? Or are you so accustomed to losing that you confuse losing with a success?
No, but I'll tell you what I am accustomed to, and that's lying from the leftists. And so here's what we're gonna do. I guess since he claimed I didn't do any research, you know what? I did him a favor. I pulled up the Wikipedia article. Don't worry, there's other documentation that can prove this. This is from, I'm gonna read this brief paragraph. It's 3 sentences long, so Wiki won't have to adjust the length of time. But this is from a section on the PRI. It's called, this is the main headliner, PRI, the Dominant Party State, 1946 to 1988. Then we scroll down. This is the really important part. Let's just scroll here. Where did I see it? It is right here.
And it's
called
PRI. Say it in the way that Mexicans call it, el PRI.
Yeah, I'm gonna listen. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you I'm not gonna do that.
Clearly, you want to pivot back to the PRI because the point of argument, you don't have it. You just want to go into the nitpicking.
Okay. Finish your point, but then I'm gonna have to ask, like, why are we talking about the PRI?
Well, I will tell you as soon as I find this thing. I mean, the point is, though, here you go. From 1929,
doesn't matter.
PRI, whatever, held the both chambers of office in the legislative branch in Mexico from 1929 to 1988, virtually unopposed, and earned every presidential vote over 70 by about a 70% margin during that time period. This guy is set here and giving us revisionist history the entire time. The reason this is important, Wick, is because it shows the dishonesty. The cartels controlled this group. This group got in bed with the cartels from the jump, right? This is like, they existed well before the war on drugs ever did. He wants to sit here and try to go, oh, it's the war on drugs. No. Pablo Escobar got into drugs before any war on drugs was ever existed. Guess what? Because Pablo Escobar is the start of the war on drugs.
Okay.
Cartels and corruption have existed in Mexico is solely from Mexico. Now, as far as interventionism, America's got what we wanted every time.
I'm gonna set some balance on this so we don't go back to the Incas. Okay, right? Let's talk about 1900 and onward. Okay, I think that's a good bound to set for now.
May I suggest that we talk from 1970 up to today?
No, absolutely not. I won't allow that.
Hold on. Let me continue. Let me ask the actual question here to Gibbs, and this is to Gibbs. Can you give me a positive example since 1900, let's say, of U.S. interventionism in South America and Latin America having a positive effect? And can you define what that effect is, please?
You want a positive effect? I mean,
yes,
for who?
The
U.S.
For who? Because was good in going into this because your argument.
Well, yeah, I gave one in my opening. 52-cent bananas, bitches. It's fucking great. I don't personally like bananas, but Elvis loved bananas. All sorts of people nationwide love bananas. We got what we wanted. Just because they got fucked, that's my problem. He said it's not. We should look at this globalist lefty bullshit. Sorry, this is the age of MAGA. America first, putos. Here's the thing. I got to go on further and say, hey. You know, we got another example, and Trump is doing the right thing with Panama. We, with our blood, sweat, tears, and tax dollars, built the Panama Canal. Not the Panamanians. They didn't do jack shit the entire time they existed. Guess what? They only exist because we backed their revolution against their government-controlling government, right? We built the Panama Canal. We made that a nation state in of its own by our support. That's true. Panama likes their country. They should be thanking us. In fact, they do thank us. Many Panamanians actually support Trump because they go, oh, America is the reason we exist at all. So unless you're sitting here arguing that Panama doesn't have a right to exist, then I guess, you know, there is no positive. I mean, there's plenty of positives. I mean, we can look at it from the American-only perspective, but right there is an example where it benefited the natives.
So as we can see, there has been no answer whatsoever to the particular question. He continues to pivot to selective disassociation in regards of nitpicking history. So, as I said before, the war on drugs as a one policy fits all aggravates the conditions of political instability within our internal countries. And the example he gave with the PRI, the Partido Revolucionario Institucional, and being in cahoots with criminality. The same thing can be said about MAGA, or could be said about Democrats, could be said about how the influence of this type of submarket creates the conditions to which we saw it back on the provision of liquor between 1920 and 1930s, where the Al Capones were in bed with the politicians. So,
and then we killed Al Capone and we put him in jail. For taxes.
Yeah, and then you had to.
When's the last time
kill the 18th Amendment? The point being here is that clearly Gibbs is not wanting to respond to the depth of the analysis.
You're not responding to history, bro. I'm picking multiple examples from history, and not a single time have you been able to dispute the facts. I'm not nitpicking. Well, I'm just picking random points because each random point.
Yes, it's random. And that's
not random. This is a trend.
You have a random nitpicking again, as I stated, and I'll go back to this point.
I don't have to revise history. I can almost throw a dart and
give me a moment, Gibbs. Give me a moment. Look, no.
Sure.
The main point I gave on my introduction is that the war on drugs started on the Nixon administration onward. That's last 14th and now 15th president since then. That influenced directly through the United Nations, through two major international courts, and then eventually on 88 through the Convention Against Trafficking of Drugs that emanated on 1988. This being said, I established that as a one rule fits all. And I established, and you can go back to the video, what I said, that the majority of drugs, of legislation, anti-drug legislation in Latin America, as well as within the United States, are dependent of those three international accords that rule over the whole thing. You did not address that. You went into this tandem about the pseudo history of Mexico without understanding. And I'll give you an example.
I understand.
The failure of the plan.
Yeah.
No, hold on. The plan. The
Go ahead.
failure of the Plan Merida. Are you aware what the Plan Merida is? No, you're
Go
not.
ahead, tell
You
us.
should
Tell
have.
us. Tell us.
You couldn't even answer me 3 presidents in Mexico. The
But you
Plan
said 5.
Merida
Actually,
was the
numbers not
initiative.
involved.
Well, 3, 5. You could mention
36,
any president
500,
of
whatever.
Mexico, and I mentioned at least 3 in sequence between the 40s and the 50s. So the Plan Merida
Before
was
the
a
time
plan
period you
that
wanted to
was
specify, by the way, but
initiated
that's fine.
via Mexico and Felipe Calderón, who was president during the 6 years of 06 and 12. That plan was precisely one of the it was kind of like the plan of Trump, militarizing the conflict of the cartels. And what was the effect of Plan Merida? 100,000 dead, over 40,000 disappeared, and a whole mess that then Peña Nieto couldn't even resolve, that then AMLO had difficulty resolving.
Was that a result of U.S. interventionism?
Yes, that's direct consequence of it. But not only that, we
How?
can talk
Can
about
you
the Plan
hold
Colombia
on, just
that was
connect it.
initiated on 99 in Colombia. That was a complete and utter failure. So, to be frank, his net picking in regards of how this conversation has gone is because he wants to omit the actual complexity of the conversation, and he just wants to neck pick because he is like McCarthy. He sees leftism everywhere, and he's ready to violate his own constitution to fight against the ghost of leftism.
You can respond, Trump or
Well,
Gibbs.
Trump. Hey,
Yeah,
we're moving up a little. El Presidente Gibbs, moving on
He
up.
said
Listen,
Trump, so I
first,
was like, okay. Go ahead, Gibbs.
First of all, once again, not the only person here doing revisionist history is not Papa Gibbs. I've been very simple. He's over here trying to nitpick things. First, this is really entertaining to me. He wanted to preclude it to only 1979 onwards. Then he mentions a bunch of presidents in the 40s and 50s for Mexico. But I don't know how that helps his point.
To you.
But whatever, not important. But moving on, yeah, Panama literally only exists as a country because we backed Panamanian rebels with our weaponry and blockaded the area around it, so the Navy couldn't get to them from the other country. Right? It's really that simple. When
did Panama become independent? What year did Panama become independent of the Spaniards? You should be able to know that. You're the one bringing it up. When did Panama become independent?
I don't want to say the wrong date here off the top of my head. I'll pull it up in a brief second. It's not super important. My point, but thank you. But yeah, exactly. Thank you. So super important. My point. But it is after post 1900. But they only exist.
Hold on. Panama became independent on 1821, but as soon as they became independent, they became part of the Gran Colombia. Hold on. They became part of the Gran Colombia. The secession of the Gran Colombia, which was the union of Ecuador, Colombia, and Venezuela, happened on 1903. That's when break away from the Gran Colombia and exercise their own independence in that sense.
Right.
Interventionism in the United States took advantage of that.
Took advantage. How convenient for the Panamanians that we used our military to ensure their success. Wow, we're so mean. We're so evil. We saved them, and that's so bad.
Keep going.
You took advantage of that, and yes, in subsequent, Panama was able to free itself from the Gran Colombia. But the fact is, even a simple question as that you couldn't answer without having to Google. Look at me, I'm looking at you straight at the computer, and I'm able to answer that.
Yeah, read chat.
Because history that you should know. But that's the point I wanted to make, Gibbs. And unfortunately, you're nitpicking and you're not dealing the issue on question. The failure of the war on drugs has been a pinnacle of that failure, of that addiction to failure that your country has in a bipartisan model since 1971 onwards.
Well, because you
have not been able to have accountability whatsoever.
Well, no, because we don't answer to. Sorry, hate to break it to you. America doesn't answer to the Latin American powers. The only people we're accountable to is our citizenry. Based, it's America first. Check that out. Maybe y'all should check that out sometime.
Yeah, and we don't answer to your country. You mentioned
Venezuela a little earlier. Hold on, you mentioned
Venezuela.
So
why should we tolerate interventionism when we're doing our own things in sovereignty? Why should we accept your exceptionalism?
Well, you don't have to accept it. We're just going to do what we want anyway
No,
and
then
get what we
if we
want.
don't
That's
ha-
the point. That's a success. I hate to break it to you. The metrics of success are determined by the countries implementing them. If you mention Iraq and it being a failure, okay, maybe I'll grant you that one. I don't, but maybe I will. Let's just for the sake of argument, if it's a failure because we didn't find these things, whatever, cool. But you know what's not a failure? Every time America's intervened in Latin America and South America, we've got what we wanted. We wanted the Panama Canal Bill. We created Panama the state. We helped her back the rebels. We supported them. They defeated their enemies, and only because of us.
Gibbs,
Hold on, one
the
other
Bay of
thing.
Pigs. Did we get what we want?
We own Guantanamo, don't we? I mean, listen, listen. It's debatable. We still own Guantanamo. We can conquer them tomorrow if we really wanted to. I mean, we like the status quo. Yes. Here's the next. I don't know all the ins and outs behind the push on that. Sure, you can. You can push back in 1 second because you're gonna want to push back on what I'm about to say. Really,
let Gibbs finish.
Just wait. Yeah, but yeah, you're gonna. You brought up Venezuela a few times now and how wonderful, successful they are. I don't know if you know.
I never said they were wonderful, successful.
You did.
When did I say it was successful?
Like literally, like I don't know, 3 rants ago. Literally 3 rants ago, you brought up Venezuela, how much drugs they've seized. I don't know if you know this, but once again, Venezuela is currently today hiring Cuban death squads to kill their people that are protesting, forcing these people to leave their country. Maduro has been so inept as a leader. As a leftist leader, a leftist socialist leader who's become a dictator, that he's caused a mass migration northward because guess what? He's killing his people and destroying the economy. And you're going to sit here and go, "That's U.S. intervention."
And that's the people your president loves. Look, first, you're strawmanning my argument. You're strawmanning my argument. I never said Venezuela was successful. I brought up Venezuela as an example of the lived experiences in the political field in that sense. And I have fought for the past 25 years against Chavez and Maduro and all the shit that has gone. But you wouldn't have a fucking clue as to why Venezuela ended up where it ended up. If he could look,
they're both on the left to me.
Look, I know you love to interrupt, but the point being here is
that you interrupted me way more. Okay,
let him finish.
Hold on. You strawman my argument in a dishonest way because I never said, and you could go back on this recording, I never said that Venezuela was successful. I only mentioned in regards of in relation to the war on drugs, giving an example how even those leftist governments contributed and continued the will of the United States in that, at least in that particular matter. Showing that Venezuela, captures drugs in the 10s to 40 tons per year, in the last 25 years. That being said, I brought that example, but then you strawmanning it into something I never said. Second, how deluded can you be in regards of history? How deluded can you be in the sense of the revisionism that you're imposing in that aspect? Because you couldn't even tell me when Panama became independent of the Spaniards, why they joined the Gran Colombia, and when they became independent of the Gran Colombia, and that interventionism of the United States in regards of that particular event. But that being said, you omit 89. You decide, oh, well, we're not going to mention 89 and the subsequent invasion of the United States to Panama because
because they were run by a drug cartel controlled dictator. I mean, once again, leftism at work.
This is the thing. And your argument in regards of this is that we don't have to respond to you. We do not have to respond to your U.S. presidents. And then you respond to us because of your fuck ups. And if you don't, we will use the same force that you use against us. We will use the same pressures, and we will make sure that your society understands.
Okay, I want to get us back on track a little bit. Hold on,
real quick. Noriega, is he still in Panama? Is he still in control of Panama? Or what happened there? Did we successfully invade Panama in 5 days? I'm sorry, I don't remember history. Like, did we do that in 1990? Yes or no?
And you committed war crimes, and you still
but Rick, you're the moderator. You can tell me. Were we successful in Panama? Did we capture Panama in 5 days? No.
We did.
Oh, well, then, lordy.
And you committed war crimes.
War crimes only apply if you lose. Hate to break it to you.
Hold on.
No, even for winners.
We're not debating war crimes today. What we're debating is American interventionism, specifically in Latin America, and as well the cartels. So we're all over the place, and I want to get us kind of in a more specific area to
Please.
talk about. And I want to talk about the cartels for a moment. So regardless of how the cartels got there, who propped them up, why they're there, etc., we have a problem. Latin America has a problem, and North America and USA has a problem with the cartels. Trump and others have suggested that cartels be put on the terrorist watch list, right, or designated as terrorists. Some have floated special military operations in Mexico to get rid of the cartels. My question to both of you, and I want to start with DITSO first on this one. Should America use military force, whether that be boots on the ground or drone strikes, in Mexico to deal with the cartels? Why or why not? Go ahead.
He should do that to his own citizens who are part of the cartels inside his own country. And he should declare his own citizens who are trafficking drugs and distributing those drugs throughout the territory of the United States as terrorists.
Doesn't do that.
And he doesn't do that. So you could see that excuse is nothing more than populism to the extreme. It clearly shows that Trump has no clue whatsoever of what he's proposing, and that what he will be proposing has already been back on the Felipe Calderon on 06 and 12 through the Plan Merida has been done. And in fact, it was Mexico who put up his military to fight against the cartels. The U.S. Army would not even have remote capability of doing anything in regards to the cartel, and any attempt without the permission of Mexico would be considered a clear act of war. And that act of war would constitute a civilization towards the United States and towards Mexico. Just like the idea of tariffs. The excuse of tariffs was because of the fentanyl that was crossing the borders. Those are the words of Donald Trump. You could see that the excuse that it's being utilized for this type of interventionism without accountability, without even saying we are in fault of all this, has to do with the populism that Gibbs loves, such vanity of populism and such ad populum delusion that has governed this whole politics in this scenario.
Okay, Gibbs, what do you think? What should the U.S. do with regards to the cartels today?
I honestly, I can't make this. You know, guys, I want to talk to Wick's audience. Wick's audience, listen, y'all like to tell me that I am the crazy extreme one. In the last few days, we have seen that I'm not the crazy extreme one. I'm perfectly capable of not using F slurs when I get mad. But you know what is a crazy extreme idea? This is the argument. This is the leftist argument. This is what the leftist liberal over here from Latin America just decided. This is what he said. Did you hear what he said, guys? Quote, Trump should drone strike and use his military on his own citizens. That's what he said. I didn't say it. That's hilarious. Guys, this guy's actually arguing for dictatorship and death squads. Wonderful. But moving on, back from Mexico. Yeah, I mean, we should go in there and take them out. If the idea that we can't do this is hilarious. First of all, Mexico, we've already beat their ass once. Called the Mexican-American War. Panama, we beat their ass in 5 days. Can you imagine what we can do with today's tech? I mean, we just talked about drones. I'm sure we got drone motherships we can like send over the jungles and send out little mini drones and go find. I'm sure we got one of the cartels. I'm sure we got satellites. It would probably take us no time at all to go in there and fully eliminate most of the cartel infrastructure out in the areas where it's built out in the country. As far as like within the cities themselves, yeah, I'm sure our special forces and our operatives will be able to figure this out pretty easily. They're very well what the cartels do. We've lived on the border for years. I mean, there's a reason why Texas has taken over 3 islands in the Rio Grande very easily, directly from the cartels. It's going to be a problem. So, yeah, I would advocate for it.
I want to ask, hold on real quick before you respond, because I want to ask Gibbs a clarifying question just so the answer is clear. Do you think that the U.S. should go in, even if Mexico, the government of Mexico says no? They says, don't, stop. Do you think that American forces should go in anyway?
So, I don't know if you know this, but Mexico only exists because we choose to allow it to. Have you heard of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo? Yeah.
Sorry,
there's so many points.
I don't know why I disconnected there, but I'm back. I apologize. My internet sometimes does this.
It's all good.
But yeah, all right. As the father, yeah, I don't know if y'all remember the Guadalupe Hidalgo, but we beat their ass, took the land, manifest destiny. That bitch, their bitch ass. Guess what? All the people living in those areas way better off they'd be under Mexico. We can look at their history. We don't need it. We would have to go back further than 1900 and talk about how that was just lawless areas that they couldn't control. Pancho Villa, Comanche Patch. We don't need to do that. But the point is, though, when we go look at these cartels, yeah, I absolutely advocate for going in there and digging them out. I mean, you know. It's pathetic. They only exist because we allow them to. Literally, that is the only reason they exist. So yeah, fuck them. If they don't want to, if they tell us no, we do what we want. We're the superpower, and they're clearly too inept to handle this problem themselves, or they would have.
So let me push back on this
And
point
knock on
real
bed with
quickly. First, to the crowd and everybody in the chat, we just saw Wix defending criminality, an apologist of those who traffic in drugs who are of U.S. citizenship. He, in basic terms, is saying, bomb the ones outside, but don't bomb my own citizens. We'll have to ask why.
No, we have due process for our American citizens. Cool thing.
We also have due process for our own citizens. But the point in that sense is that
y'all are doing
as
that
we
process.
saw,
That's the whole
did
problem.
I interrupt you? Did I interrupt you?
Go ahead.
No, I
Go
did
ahead.
not interrupt you. So the point being here is Gibbs has made an apologist approach towards defending criminality. Okay, for U.S. citizens to traffic drugs to children, to the people who are affected by those drugs, it doesn't even matter. So if you declare terrorism to the cartels and the people who are trafficking drugs, that exceeds the U.S. citizen. It seems it doesn't matter. The U.S. citizen can do whatever they want, even if it's criminality under Trump. In that sense, it clearly shows to us that his projection in trying to tell me that what I was advocating for was actually bombing U.S. citizens, it clearly went way over his head in the sense that I never made that point. What I was making the point is that by indicating that cartels or drug trafficking as terrorism, you would have to apply that internally also in the United States, because it's not only in Latin America that drug trafficking is happening. United States is one of the major buyers of drugs, and then it gets distributed throughout the whole national level. So who is distributing those drugs if not U.S. or a majority of U.S. born citizens that are in cahoots with drug trafficking in that sense? So if you have to, and if Trump says we're going to declare that, it has to be equal for everybody, including his own citizens that are part of that deal.
Well, I guess I just asked Gibbs, are you against putting people who traffic in drugs on the terrorist watch list?
Am I against people that putting
drug traffickers, drug dealers, drug distributors? I'm talking at a major level. I'm not talking like petty corner store people.
You're not talking about like
the
well, because if we were, I mean,
right? Are you against even for American citizens, right, designating them as terrorists?
Well, I mean, honestly, I would have to look into it more to like give you a 100%, like I'll die on this hill answer. So guys, don't like poke this later. But I don't see why I would be inherently opposed to that. Like I think it would be more of an issue if you're talking about like Dimebag Daryl around the corner, hey, he's a terrorist now because he sold, an ounce of coke to somebody. I mean, like, that's a lot of coke.
I'm talking about the major distributors.
Like, yeah, I mean, if you're talking about major distributors, I don't see why that would be an issue. I don't know, like, how many people in the United States fall in that category, but if we want to charge them with terrorism, sure. The reason I say due process in the United States, I don't care about these other countries, is Wick. I don't know if you know this as a wonderful historian that you are, but do you know why extradition exists? Don't worry, I'm going to tell you. Extradition exists because they couldn't get the fucking job done. So we had to extradite their bitch ass here to the U.S. and try them for the crimes. Because guess what? I don't know if you remember Pablo Escobar, who I never built up earlier, but he literally built a palace and self-prisoned there. And this is not that. It'd be one thing if he was the only random example, as DITSO wanted, but there's multiple examples of this.
So extradition, just to be clear what that is, it's when someone commits a crime, then flees the country. So whatever country they flee to extradites it back into the country that the crime was committed. That's what extradition is.
Right. So yeah. So we extradited people like Noriega and others here, and that's why
But we don't do
Escobar
it
didn't
because
want to
they
get
can't
extradited.
prosecute it. That's
So
not why we do it.
No, we did do it because they couldn't. No. Wait,
let's
that is a second.
present
I
let's
object to
present the
that. One
question.
second. So I'm going to turn it right back over to you. One second. I object to that vehemently, Wick. The reason extradition exists, and the reason why Pablo Escobar literally said he'd rather die in Colombia than go to America is because anybody that's done any research on Pablo Escobar knows this, is because he knew that he would go from his opulent lifestyle to sitting there in a cell 24/7 and giving it up. That's a fate worse than death for somebody like Pablo and all those other people. We did do this because they couldn't get the job done. Because when we gave them a chance, what did they do? The cartel leaders built their own prisons that became palaces, and we have others example of this at a smaller level than Escobar. But Escobar's the real big one, and that's why extradition exists. Let's make that clear, Wick. Don't revisionist history any of this bullshit.
So first of all,
And,
extradition has its roots in the 13th century. We didn't
13th
invent that.
century,
Well,
yeah.
we mean modern
We did not
extradition
invent that.
post-1900.
for
And the
thousands,
opposition-
like 1,000 years, buddy. But
But
anyway.
to
But you know what I mean. But come on,
Wick.
Wick. Come on. That's once again. Now
I'm
you-
just
now you're
saying,
doing some
like,
bullshit. Sure. Okay.
it's just not
technically,
true.
You're the best one. You're the base. You're okay. I will grant you this, Wick. You're the best form of correct, and that's technically correct. But the reason why extradition exists now in relation to Latin and South America is because we're the superpower and they didn't get the job done. Let's not sit here and try to bull the technically correct. I've seen Futurama too. Come on.
Okay.
So
Go ahead, please.
2 weeks into the whole crowd, look at the problem of diluted notion that has been presented in this sense. First, if we look at who are the people who are involved in drug trafficking and drug distribution and drug selling, etc., those people are your neighbors. Those people are people you may know, your colleagues, your uncles, your etc. So, let's look at that interesting. Pablo Escobar was elected to the Colombian Congress in 82 or 85, I don't remember exactly the date, and he became a congressman within that.
Not acceptable. I'm just kidding.
So here's the question that Gibbs will have to answer. How many U.S. citizens who are part of drug trafficking give back to the communities and fulfill the role of the politicians that have failed, that may help to build schools, who may help to construct roads? So here's the thing. You're treating drug trafficking as this beast that has amorphous beast, and it's a economic human activity that is guided by different set of interests, different sets of principles, different set of values, and that you would have people like Pablo Escobar who are also interested in giving back to the community while becoming a sort of feudal lord in that community.
Okay. Let me ask you a question, DITSO, if I may. So from 1968 to 2020, over 1 million U.S. citizens have died due to drug overdoses. Given that is the case, how many do you not see that America has an interest in stopping the flow of these drugs towards its citizen? And if a cartel is producing those drugs in order to sell to American citizens, do you not think that the America has any ability to stop it? What would you have them do is my question, right? What would you have them do? Say there's a Pablo Escobar or another drug trafficker. He builds like 20 schools for Mexican kids. Does that make him immune to Americans coming in and taking them out?
Excellent question.
Go ahead.
Wick. Very excellent question. And I'm going to answer it in the following way. The war on drugs and drug trafficking is the ideal market for an anarcho-capitalist. It is a market that is not regulated or controlled by any government intervention in its production, distribution, and sales in that way. Therefore, when you the people who are buying the drugs from those cartels don't know what they're buying. So you have a health problem that initiates on that of that lack of regulation in regards to that. So here's the question: why are we treating this issue as a criminal justice one when we should be treating this as a health and a public health one, where the consumers and the people who are dying because of the consumption of this this trade and this unregulated trade are not given the same opportunities as somebody who smokes cigarettes, who has a whole or liquor, who has a whole industry that has sanitary and quality controls over the product they're consuming. So let's be frank: prohibition kills people. How? Via the unregulated commerce of those substances. So the interest is not only in the United States, the interest is all of us, because you said what year? 68 to what year did you say?
68 to 2020, about over 1,100,000 and some change people have died of drug
In Latin
overdoses
America, throughout Latin America, it's about 2.1 to 3 million people approximately in that sense. However, as you can see, we also have that problem. So the interest is shared in the sense that, yes, we do not want people dying because of the drugs that are being consumed, because of drugs that are being unregulated and they hit the market altered with, laced with fentanyl, or laced with cocaine, or laced with I don't know, windshields, whatever. But the point being here is the problem resides on the focus of the problem. If you keep on treating this as a criminal justice problem, people are going to still die. So who is ultimately the fault of those people dying? If not your own government, your own local, state, and federal government that could have continued that policy of stigmatization and of pushing away the consumer to worsen and worsen practices. So at that end, it's from Trump's fault to Nixon's fault. All those politicians that have been on it, that's where the fault lies.
Fair enough, and I understand your argument that some blame could be placed there, but I don't know. I would blame the drug dealer selling the drugs to the kids. That would be who I'd blame, honestly.
You have an unregulated market.
Like,
a market.
Someone's gonna sell them those drugs. It might as well be us. Okay, Gibbs, go ahead, respond, and
Yeah, I just, Vic, I thank you so much for having me on your panels. I really love coming to your show because I say this all the time on channel. I said it here last week. The fight against left is a pernicious one, and the best way as a conservative, I find to defeat the left is to just let them speak. And right here, what we heard, his 2 points were two very big ones to Rick's question. One was they took Pablo Escobar, this Robin Hood Paisa, and he replaced local government because drugs are part of their culture. They glorified him, and what a wonderful, nice guy. How much did he do good he did for the people? Because guess what? Their left-leaning government was a failed state, and so Pablo Escobar took up for him when their government failed. That's his argument. Good argument. Good argument. I wonder what's any problems there. I really, Moving on, his next argument was, oh, well, this is bad. It's all America's fault because capitalism. Market exists. Someone's going to sell it. Says the market exists. America bad. That's what he said. Boils it down. He's mad because people will buy drugs and thus all evil. Oh, man. Because guess what? It isn't on a regular market because we, I don't know, put laws restricting heroin and fentanyl and cocaine and all these other things because people didn't like their kids dying of drug overdoses. Crazy that would happen, right? I don't know. Can't believe it. But, it's our fault that it's unregulated because we restricted those things. And, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess he wins, guys. If those are the arguments, I got nothing. Because you know why? I'm not going to make an argument. Because those arguments are so fucking ridiculous that I don't even need to say anything.
So we're not going to address that again. The complete and utter absurdity of the rambling.
This is what you said. This is what you said. It's not. So how was what you said?
Let's address it.
You agree that what you said is absurd? Thanks. Cool. Right.
Let's address it. One.
Well, yeah, let's just address it, please.
His conclusion is false in the sense that I never made a a judgment call in regards of a capitalist market. I only indicated that the market and the sub-market created by provision of drugs is a fantasy for anarcho-capitalist type of idea of a market, a unregulated, no intervention of government, that
You
is
don't think
completely and
sending
utterly
special forces
controlled
in
in
and
that sense.
bombing
So
is
again,
intervention?
he's
You
not
don't think
understanding
the
the core.
ATF and the
Again,
DEA is government
did I
intervention into
interrupt
a
you?
market?
Did I interrupt
Well,
you?
I'm just
Gibbs.
asking. I mean,
Well,
No,
I'm
no,
let him
asking
hold
you a
on,
finish. Let
hold
question.
on.
Ditso finish,
Well,
please.
sure, but I wanted to answer that question. Are those government intervention or not? Like, because he's saying on one hand it's not intervention, and on the other hand it is intervention. So, like, what is it? Is the DEA and the ATF intervention and on an unregulated market, or is it not? Because you can't have
It's
both. You can't have an
persecution, not
unregulated market and
Well,
okay.
intervention.
let
Go
him
ahead.
let
Hold
him
on.
let him
Oh, yeah,
get into his
yeah,
point,
go ahead.
Ditso. Ditso, go ahead, Ditso.
This is the problem with Gibbs. When I say that the market is non-regulated, it means in all its different chains, either a production, supply, sale. It There is no intervention on how the drugs arrive to the consumer. When we talk about the persecution and prosecution of the whole thing, of the whole of the whole activity surrounding it, that's that constitutes a form of intervention that does not affect the rest of the market. It only affects the end result of going from point A to point B. But let's bring up, for example, Oliver North, who in in through the Contras opened the doors for the flooding of cocaine to your country. And this was it.
Wait, what's your solution here? What's your solution?
So,
Do you want us just to
okay,
deregulate and then we have capitalism
no,
with
no,
it?
no.
And like, okay,
I
like, is
never
that what
said.
your solution? Or what do you?
Okay,
Or
I
do
never
you?
answered
And you never
solution.
answered my
So,
question, by the way. Is the
what's your
DEA
question?
and ATF and all these other enforcement agencies I don't know, intervention on a regulated market?
Again,
Because guess what? We have laws
I
preventing these things. That is called, quote unquote, that is the term regulation. That's what regulation
no,
means.
no, no,
So
no,
guess what? It is a regulated market. So you can talk about all
no.
this anarcho-capitalism. Are those government intervention or not? Because the answer is yes. But
Okay,
like, I know you're not going to
no,
do that.
you are completely not wrong because you have to make a clear distinction. And I explained it, and I
Oh,
answered your
oh,
question.
please.
The distinction I made was that there is no governmental intervention in any process of the market
So what's
from
your
production
solution?
to the pocket, and that interdiction, what is the cops chasing the whole thing, is a direct intervention that does not affect the rest of the market, only at the end point. And that end point is when you're capturing the drugs and then taking them out of the transit, creating empty holes that then are filled. I'll give you an example. What was one of the major consequences of interdiction that was being done to cocaine? The appearance of crack cocaine. And we've seen that systematically happening in regards of the different offer and demands that happen in regards of drugs. So your vision and your conclusion is senseless. It does not. It's dishonest and disingenuous, to be honest. You cannot consider interdiction an intervention equal to the intervention of a market, of its production, distribution, sale, quality controls, sanitary controls, etc. It is
So
not the
is that
same.
your solution?
This-
Is that your solution? You want legalize or regulate? Yes or no? Is that what you want?
okay, so this is what we have been proposing.
You gotta get a yes or
So
no
hold on,
answer.
no,
Like,
hold
what do
on,
you want?
stop,
What is
both
your
of you,
solution, bro?
both of you, stop, because I am very curious. And this is to Ditso, and then I have a question for you, Gibbs, but I want to hear Ditso's
Sure.
answer.
Yeah, I mean, I want some of these questions answered
Hold
because
on.
he's answered none
Sure,
of them that I've
sure.
asked.
Two questions for you, Ditso. One, are you proposing ending the war on drugs? And two, does that mean that you would advocate in America for the legalization and or decriminalization of hard drugs such as cocaine, heroin, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Okay, so I'm gonna address it in the way I have proposed it in my country and contributed to other countries in the legislative mean. So when we speak of legalization, yes, we speak of changing that legislative norm, also from the international sense, from a consideration of illegal to legal. But what does that mean? That means that from a legislative sense, we have to then establish a whole series of net rules and guidelines, etc., that in order for that movement to happen. That is not something that happens from one night to the other. That is a lengthy process. So what we have to do and what we have proposed is, one, the end of the war on drugs. Move the usage of drugs from a criminal justice system that has failed us and that has incarcerated millions and millions of people, especially in the United States, alongside all Latin America. Two, that we have to then establish decriminalization and depenalization for the consumer.
Okay, so you are for
Which then-
decriminalization for the consumer.
Yeah. No, yes, but we understand it in a more broader sense. Legalization, decriminalization, depenalization are three pillars of reform. So those concepts of legalization, decriminalization, and depenalization function in tandem with each other. When we move the issue to a public health centered one, then we can start attending the problematic usage of drugs by implementing either harm reduction or other methods of enabling those people who have problematic use of drugs to start transitioning away from the aka addiction, etc.
Okay.
Not only that, but this is a problem that is not going to be solved overnight. This is a problem. If the war on drugs and its effects have lasted for past 60 years, a change and reform is going to take at least 25, 40 years for things to start balancing out and trying to figure out other approaches that don't involve
Incarceration.
throwing people to
and
jail,
things like yes.
stigma against the abusers, and condemning those users to pretty much death by deregulation on the market in that
Okay.
sense.
This is a question for you, Gibbs.
Sure.
In regards to the cartels and military intervention against the cartels. I know we got a little into the weeds on legalization there. But let me ask you
That's
this.
fine.
So say there is a strike against the cartels. What would success look like? And two, at what point, when you fail to achieve whatever success looks like here, do we stop? Where's the off ramp? Where's the okay, this hasn't worked, we need to try something else? Go ahead.
Well, I like the way you framed this question quite a bit, Rick. Like this is really something I feel like as a pragmatist and really as somebody that's very self-centered, I try to do in my business, right? In my businesses, right? What I try to do is I'll try something. Like just like Elon Musk is doing with Doge, he's going there cutting stuff. If something's going wrong, cutting stuff out, trying to see if it's efficient. If it doesn't work, we re-implement it. Yada yada. So like, yeah, we need an off ramp for these things. One, what a strike would look like. I don't know. I'm pretty open-minded. I don't want to sit here and get bogged down.
A
Like,
successful strike, to be clear.
a successful strike. Yeah, right. I'm pretty open-minded. I think there's a variety of like victory conditions. So I don't think we need to just like I'm gonna pick just one, don't worry. But I think there's multiple levels. We could go in there and it would be successful if not one American died and we somehow use special forces and local people to get it, whatever. I think it's a little bit unrealistic, but there could be a level of that. We get it. I think there's a level where we could build the Great Wall of America along the South, and it stopped like I don't know a very large percentage from getting in here, and then we like forcefully control a buffer zone or something. That could be a viable one. I think we go in there and we take out the cartels, simultaneously while we do drug legalization efforts here in the United States on varying degrees, and have big pharma maybe produce some of these and like make them up to a certain standard that when we know they're safe. I mean, there's lots of different levels of victory conditions. Those are just 3 or 4. I mean, I think what's more interesting is what would be a bad outcome to me, right? And in this scenario, the only way we have a bad outcome is after we do a strike, we go and look and see if America doesn't benefit in the long term. Because right now, I agree. I don't think the war on drugs has been successful. right? It's been very inefficient at targeting who it wants to target, and I think that it's been a waste of taxpayer dollars. Now, I think that we could even be creating vice taxes, on these drugs. Like, what about the cocaine tax? Right, that sounds pretty good. Rich people, as far as I know, a lot of them like coke. I'm sure they can afford to pay a tax on that. That'd be a tax as like not a libertarian I'd be okay with. That could fund all sorts of shit. Maybe we use the cocaine tax to fund education. Holy God, guess what? You got a MAGA guy maybe considering a new Department of Education right there with cocaine tariff money. I mean, it's crazy stuff. Like the things we could do. I don't know. There's all sorts of. A bad outcome would be where, I don't know, nothing changes and we just do it for, I don't know, 30, 40 years without trying something else. I think it's about time we try something else and maybe forceful intervention into Mexico on these cartels, or maybe just taking over Mexico itself might be the right solution. Who knows?
To be sincere in this sense, and I do have to address a couple points. One, taxation of cocaine as proposed by Gibbs is a de facto acceptance and legalization of that product.
Yeah, I already
because
granted
then you on that sense. So that's an interesting approach. Let's look at, for example, the fall of Al Capone. Al Capone did not fall and end in prison because of all the criminal activity he did. The major point was he did not pay taxes, and he ended his ass on jail. So here's the thing, and it's a good thing that Gibbs brought it up, because I left it orbiting in that point I gave in regards of the description of the problem. But here's the interesting point. Cartels don't pay taxes in any country. This is why when I said the distinction between interdiction or persecuting the drug versus the intervention of a government was precisely, I wanted to see if somebody.
So wait, you're arguing for
got
American
onto that.
intervention then? So wait,
No.
that you are
What-
arguing for? Oh,
No, I'm
fantastic!
not.
Gladly
Hold on.
agree American interventionism
No.
is based. Thank
In
you,
any way,
Jesus.
shape, form, or manner.
I win.
Oh.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, hold on. I am not. Hold on, Gibbs.
I mean, it was that easy.
No.
All we need is American intervention.
Gibbs, calm down.
Appreciate it.
In any
Just
way,
wanted to
shape,
point
form,
out
or
that
manner,
point.
what Gibbs is advocating for is legalization of all drugs. What Gibbs is advocating for is a different approach from intervention. He's going against the wishes of his own president in that sense. He's clearly telling us that he does not trust his president, he does not trust his government, even though he voted for that president.
Trump has been the most
for the success
pro-legalization
in that
president
sense.
in the recent memory. Trump is the one who got all the THC and stuff unbanned nationwide. He's been the most pro-legalization president we've had ever. So
Actually, that wasn't Trump.
what was your? Oh,
That
it was Trump. It was Trump.
That was international community pressuring.
Well, the international community can't do shit in the U.S. Let's just make that clear.
We did. We have done several things
internal legalization.
We have done several pressures towards your country for your country to back down from certain stupidities.
This is just copium.
One example is that
Kinky Friedman brand as a marijuana legalization in Texas got a third of the vote a few years back. I'm sure that the international committee had a lot to do with Kinky Friedman running.
It is clear in this sense. No. What's ludicrous, Gibbs, is that your exceptionalism and your defaultism, it has blinded you into oblivion without understanding the historical context, etc. But at the end, you agree with the point that I gave, that we need to change. And that change is not through your president. That changes something that has to happen internationally, because unfortunately your own policy and foreign policy was
all of this is international. What do you mean?
In that sense? So in this aspect, you just admitted openly that it's your country's fault that this has gone internationally, and that you've openly admitted that the so-called
are you high on these drugs right now? Like, are they in the room with you? Because that's not what happened. Like, I gotta address that.
Gang,
of course, it happened.
I understand, but I just want to just a little bit of a housekeeping here. We are going to get to closing soon. I do have other things I need to do after the debate, but finish up what you were saying, Ditso, and I'll let Gibbs respond. Then we'll go to closing. Sounds good.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Point being on all this is that we have seen.
We're not ending.
I'm talking to everybody in the chat, and hopefully for anybody who receives this, we have seen tacit an acceptance of the failure of foreign policy in every level of the United States, using the example of the war on drugs. That currently, the idea of military interventionism compared to what Felipe Calderon did between '06 and 12 in Mexico, using Mexican military pressured by the United States to intervene, is a complete and utter joke, failure, an addiction, to say at least, of a man who's addicted to want to be a dictator in that sense, in every sense of the word. This being said, it is also very important to denote that the problem of delusion that internally some people have in regards to this type of conversation does not allow for the depth to reach those points. Yes, I advocate for a drug policy reform that includes the term legalization, decriminalization, depenalization, focus not towards the cartels or the drug trafficking, but the consumer, the human being who is extremely affected and forgotten, and whose primary suffering of this whole provision bullshit that we have lived through for the past 60 years, made in the United States.
Okay, respond to that, Gibbs, and then we're gonna go to closing statements.
All right, cool. All right, but first, this is really easy. I really want to address. First of all, I didn't agree to none of what he said. What's crazy here is he thinks that just because he's made some blanket, like theoretical idea about deregulation in the United States and how that could potentially work at multiple levels, how that somehow negates my borderline, I don't know, small government, like libertarian sympathetic views where I'm like, hey, let's legalize drugs. It's none of their business. I don't understand how that's just stupidity and not understanding, like, at all. Secondly, he argued for intervention basically the whole time right now. He goes, interdiction's not working. We need to try something else. Oh, well, the military didn't work this time. Let's intervene here because, one, you can't, the drug cartels just move to something else. They'll move to sex trafficking. They'll create new drugs. Like, these things are going to exist unless we dig them out. It's that simple. We have to intervene. I also think we can get some regulation changes here, but that's not really the argument because there is going to be a market that always exists. Even under the world's best communist dictatorship, there are people in China, despite everything, that are still going to want to do drugs every once in a while. I mean, just like in the most restricted market, and then in the most deregulated. It's not the fault that there's going to be consumers. It's the fault that there's going to be people that are bad people that do nefarious business tactics and will do this anyway. And guess what? The cartels are the epitome of that. They kill people. They go after little kids. They get people hooked. They create addicts. They create new drugs that are more addicting to keep people alive the longer in some cases. I mean, this is crazy. This is all things they all do. They all do this, and the only way to get rid of them is to dig them out. The idea that that's not gonna have to happen is ridiculous because we've been doing the same thing for the last, I don't know, 50 years, and the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over. So yeah, I think we should try something else out, and that's whooping that ass.
Okay, and with that, thank you both for being here. This has been a robust discussion. Obviously, there's like a thousand things to go over, but I do have limited time today. We aren't ending after this. I just have to cover some other things. But I want to give each of these individuals a chance to have a closing statement and tell people where they can find you. I'm going to let DITSO go first. Give your closing
Could Gibbs go first? If it's okay, I would like to go last if possible.
I mean, it's not a big deal to me.
No. Gibbs, go ahead and give your closing. I do wish to go last.
Gibbs.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I've said a lot of things today. American exceptionalism is based. American imperialism is based. I mean, we can look at anything that was conquered by America from Mexico and see how it's done under our rule and compare it to there. We built Las Vegas. We've built cities literally in places that shouldn't have people living there. We built the Mecca of pleasure and entertainment. Like, that shows something about American imperialism. You know what Mexico did while they controlled that area? They let it fall to just raids and lawlessness. It was terrible. So, yeah, I would say American exceptionalism is based. Manifest destiny is based. I think we should take out these cartels. I'm also pro-legalization in some ways. Maybe let's let Big Pharma make some of these drugs. I don't know. I'm not going to die on a hill with something specific there, but I would take a look at a lot of different things. The Latin American countries prove time and time again they shouldn't have any. We shouldn't respect their leadership because they're owned by the drug cartels, and it's pathetic. It's sad. It just keeps happening, and they're doing this to themselves. And finally, I do want to say something important. This is unrelated to the stream. Guys, don't nuke other people's channels if you're on a debate show. That is not cool. Just because you don't like a person, I don't know if DITSO likes me or not. He seems like a nice enough guy outside of here. But I would never, if I hated him, nuke somebody else's channel. Fuck that. Don't do it. And anybody that does that's is a dickhead. I don't really know. That's just not cool. I don't know. It's one thing if somebody accidentally does something, but it's another thing if you're over here purposely using words and they're like, oh well, it's a platform I don't care about. No, sorry, not cool to do anyway. Finally, I'm Admiral Gibbs. You find me as Admiral Gibbs everywhere. And I will be doing directly after this. We will have the regular season opener of the Debate Championship Series. We're gonna have back-to-back DCS matches. We're gonna have Average Debate Joyer versus Rowan, and then Pentempo versus the Big Chase C. It's gonna be good. And after that, we're going on the Emily Charlie Debate Royale. So it's gonna be fun times the rest of the night. Thank you so much, Wick, for having me. Always a joy to be here. Thank you, DITSO, for coming and yelling at bullshit with me. It's been very entertaining for me.
Okay. Thank you for being here, Gibbs. Check him out. Links in my channel and my YouTube description. Click that link. Give him a follow. It's all great. DITSO, please finish us off.
Yeah. First, Wick, thank you for having me. I really appreciate this. Thank you for this opportunity. In the same sense, Gibbs, thank you for participating. We may disagree in many things. I think you would be an interesting person to either have a drink or smoke with in other levels. But to conclude in this sense, one, U.S. interventionism is a borderline criminal activity that has created the worsening conditions in Latin America. It clearly shows to us that, be it the war on drugs, war on terrorism, or war on whatever, the North American idealism is warring on everything without even taking into account different approaches, etc. The New World Order that today is governed by Donald Trump as a dictator wannabe, emulating Putin and other dictators in that sense, clearly shows to us that the United States has no interest in resolving issues, but making things worse in every sense of the word, and they continue to do so. But this hasn't only been a problem with Trump. This has been a bipartisan problem from the get-go, from the last 200 and 248 years of existence of the United States. In the famous words of Simon Bolivar, it seems the United States is destined by Providence to plague America with misery in name of liberty. And so far, these words seem, based on the evidence and the factual evidence, to be ringing so much truer. In regards of the war on drugs and the cartels, taking the words of my opponent, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and pretending different outcomes. And currently, the admittance of even entertaining the idea of a military intervention in Mexico without the permission of Mexico, it is clearly that sickness. Trump wants to do the same thing over and over and over and over again, expecting different results. And we see clearly that that does not happen. What routes of solution that we have, as I explained, drug policy reform refers to a complete and utter change on the paradigm that we're established. Because if we establish legalization, decriminalization, depenalization, and people say, well, the black market will still exist, I will encourage them to read a precedent in regards of what happened with the mafias that were controlling liquor and liquor distribution during the Prohibition era in the United States. How, for example, moonshiners moved to then NASCAR in that sense, to give an example. Or the end of Al Capone because he did not pay taxes. Criminality and the control of that criminality is also something that requires, and someone that advocates for a small government and for a less interventionism of governments into daily life, means that we cannot allow either Christian, Islamic, or any other religion to be imposed via a legislative means. We cannot allow a pseudo-moral ideas to be created into legislative and into law, because what we've seen is that the moral of one becomes the oppression of the other. And that is a factual sense that we can analyze from the broader to the micro. United States exceptionalism, the Monroe Doctrine, Destiny Manifest, is the imposition of a pseudo-moralistic mumbo-jumbo created in the United States that has become a contributing force to our oppression outside of the United States. And that criminal activity one day will pass the bill in the destruction and the end of that corrupt empire called the United States of America in that sense. And hopefully that will signal the freedom of America, of the whole America, from such a thing in the rear neighbor that we've had for the past 200 years. Even though we have told them more than once, we can collaborate as equals, not as subordinates. And today, Donald Trump has already become that joke, that semblance of stupidity, where he pretends that all of us are his backyard and we're no one's backyard.
Well, thank you for being here. I don't have a link to give people for you, but you can find him in my Discord, I suppose. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having us.
Okay. Gang. Well, first of all, Admiral Gibbs, thank you for the subs. Appreciate you, okay, for giving me a little money here. Ooh-wee! That was a rough one, gang. I'm not gonna lie. Not gonna lie. A lot. It's there was so much that I wish we would have talked about. Right? And I want to take this moment, right, while you guys are still here and you haven't, those of you who've stuck it out, and I appreciate you, all of you who stuck it out, okay? There's a few things that were touched on that I have opinions on, that I want to give my opinions on, and I want to kind of like talk about it because I think it is important. We have a storied history in America of intervening in Latin America for a variety of reasons, not all of them good. We have opposed Soviet during the Cold War. We had a little bit of a dueling interventionism with them that has caused major issues in many of these countries for decades. It's something we have to wrap our heads around, and we have to really kind of understand. That said, not all intervention is bad. Not all the ways we have intervened in these countries have been harmful or negative. It was odd hearing DITSO talk about the Korean War as a bad American intervention. That's something I very much disagree with. The Korean War was one of our best interventions in that case. The issue here, when it comes to the drug war, is that, yes, it has been inefficient and ineffective. However, I think the idea of stopping non-state actors from pumping our citizens full of drugs, designing drugs to be addictive, because, again, it's not the same as Coke, right? This is not good for me, to be clear. I want to be clear with you guys. Drinking this is unhealthy. I shouldn't do it. However, there is a far worse things that I could put in my body if I was doing heroin or cocaine or other really hard drugs such as that. They are addictive in a way that Coke simply is not. And they are designed to be so. And the withdrawals from them are devastating. And these poisons are being pushed into the U.S. by these cartels. Something has to be done. I don't know if interventionism is the answer here. I don't know if, and specifically military interventionism is the answer here. However, it's clear, at least at this juncture, that the Mexican government is incapable or just simply does not want to fix the problem. And one of the reasons that they're having issues is the amount of political assassinations in Mexico since the year 2000. has been over 8,000. I believe it's 1,200, maybe 1,100. 1,100 political assassinations in Mexico since the year 2000. Can you imagine that happening in the U.S.? That over 1,200 American politicians being killed and assassinated? The cartels are mixed up with the government down there in a way that is hard to separate. That's not to say that all Mexican government is bad and corrupt, but it is a problem, and it is something that must be dealt with. And I frankly don't have the answer for you, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know. And that's one of the reasons I agreed to host this debate, as I was hoping they would have some answers for me. They didn't. There may come a time where military intervention is the best way forward here. I don't know. It's something that I don't think we could take off the table. Wolf of Mandalore says, I would say they are unwilling, capable of handling it on their own, but they seem to be unwilling. I'm not sure that they are, right? Or at least the cost would be too high for them to have basically a civil war over the cartels. It's a problem, and it is something that they're going to have to deal with. Oh boy. So $2 from Keto Burrito says, but Wick, America bad. Let me read some of these super chats. Let me make a little money here. PDX Pleb for $2. Operation Gideon was indeed a sad failure, Gibbs. Yeah, so the idea that America has gotten everything it was wanted and all of our interventions have been positive for America is simply not true. The Bay of Pigs is a great example. Operation Gideon is another one. $5 from Zephyr Hash to say, vacation, get the tooth fixed first. Oh, you weirdo. DITSO W. Okay, well, thank you for the $5. At the end of the day, right, we have to decide what as a country we want to do when it comes to drugs. I don't necessarily buy the arguments for legalization. I don't like. I think it's okay to have laws against harmful products. Okay, I think it's okay to have laws against things that hurt Americans. And there's obviously nuance to this. There's levels to this. Again, this hurts me, but it's not at the same level as cocaine. We can't pretend they're the same, right? Though this is unhealthy, it is not at the same levels of cocaine. Decriminalization is something I would be more favorable towards, or at least I would be more open to hearing arguments for. I think that there is very little value in locking people up for being addicts. I think they do deserve help, and they do deserve we need to send them to rehab, not to jail. Does that make sense? Assuming they haven't done other crimes related to the drug activity. But I don't think I am more open to decriminalization efforts, if that makes sense. Can you join the call to discuss this, Zephyr Hash? For a little bit. I want to get some of my own thoughts out first before I bring anyone in. But sure, jump backstage, and after I'm done with my own thoughts, we'll pull you in, and I'll talk to you about it, and we'll have a discussion, a small one, a short one. I don't have too much time tonight, unfortunately. There's a lot going on in the streamer world. Okay, for those of you who don't know, today the legal documents for Destiny, the Pixies lawsuit against Destiny, and I believe it's a civil lawsuit, dropped. I haven't read through it yet, but it is available. People have been posting it in my Discord if you'd like to go through it, and you can read it for yourself. It will be interesting to. And I just want to say this on this. This is the proper way to handle these things. Too often we try to do this court of public opinion shit, where we try to have 20 different panels and 20 different discussions where we litigate shit like this. When it rises to the levels of the accusations being made, that's when it needs to go to the courts, because I can't do anything about it. In a real way. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do to Destiny, frankly? Do you want me to pull his fingernails out? Do you want me to punch him in the face? I can't do anything about it. But the courts can. The courts can. We have systems in place that you can go through, and I encourage you to do so. I don't know if we help anyone by making it content. Does that make sense? I know we all have an interest in discussing such things. I mean, it's worth talking about. But I do think that we need to understand that victims are not served by making it into content. What helps victims is going through the courts. That's what we need to do. Okay, gang. What else did I have to say? I don't know. Do you guys like these kinds of this kind of content where it's just 1v1? I don't know about tonight. Honestly. I don't know. It wasn't great. I'm just being honest with you guys. I don't think it was great content. Am I wrong, though? Did you guys actually like this? Is this something I should do more? And 4 says 1v1 is really cool and there's more expertise. Keto Burrito says, honestly, no. Our built environment says 1v1 is cool. The topic didn't pull my heartstrings, to be honest. Fair. I mean, it could be simply a miss on topics. It's possible. Yeah, it's one of those things where I've had good one-on-one discussions before. I've hosted good one-on-one debates before where it's been very interesting, very successful. I don't know what it was about tonight. It just didn't hit. It just didn't work. It just didn't work, gang. I don't think it worked. Kinetic Pause says, yeah, more expertise. When the guy cited William Walker, I knew that he was an unserious interlocutor. Maybe. Maybe. And we have some great stuff to talk about tomorrow. We're going to do Collins. It's going to be Collins all day. And it's going to be probably 90% sure my last stream before I go on a vacation. So open up your wallets, open your pocketbooks, and send me some money so I can have fun on my vacation. It'd be really helpful. I do want to talk as well about what's going on with U.S. aid, okay, and Doge. I know we've talked about it to death almost, but I want to give an official opinion, okay, and I want to re-up my opinion because this is an ongoing thing, and this keeps happening, and I want to just reiterate that nothing has changed to the fact that I am pro Doge. I am anti Doge, to be clear. Nothing has changed to change my mind on this. They continue to misrepresent what the funding that they are freezing in the different research papers, projects, etc. that they are canceling and cutting. Okay, they continue to misrepresent what their goals are. I do not trust them, frankly, to do a proper audit. That said, audits are good. We should find fraud, waste, and abuse in our government system, and we should get rid of that fraud, waste, and abuse. I simply don't trust the people who are engaging in that, and I don't trust their methodology. They have been less than forthcoming on what they are doing and why they are doing it. And by less than forthcoming, I mean that they have actively, in my opinion, lied and misrepresented what they're trying to do. But yeah, that's my thought. Portland is Burning says, I like 1v1 conversations, but Gibbs is too big of a personality for 1v1. He can't turn off the shtick. Me versus Quibbles was a much better stream, in my unbiased opinion. I mean, I don't disagree. $10 from Anforce says, for your vacay. Thank you for the $10. No Cal Mike says, I hope my presence in the VC today has influenced your correct opinions on Doge. Kinetic Pause says 8% military cuts for 5 years is insane. depending on what they're cutting, I'm not necessarily against military cuts, is a thing. That said, I do think we need to pump more money into certain aspects of the military. For example, we need more munitions. We simply do. We need to up and we need to modernize our stockpiles, right? We need to modernize our equipments. We need to replace our old equipments and get new equipments in. And while I'm on the subject, let's talk about something that did piss me off today. And I'm going to just read this. I'll even put this up on the screen, okay, so you guys can read this, okay? This is from Donald Trump, but J.D. Vance, our vice president. He's the one that retweeted this. He posted this and tweeted it out in case we missed it, okay? Let me just read this statement, and then we'll talk about it. Think of it, a modestly successful comedian, Volodymyr Zelensky, talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that couldn't be won, that never had to start, but a war that he, without the U.S. and Trump, and I don't know why Trump is in square quotes here, but he put it in square quotes, will never be able to settle. The United States has spent $200 billion more than Europe, and Europe's money is guaranteed, while the United States will get nothing back. Why didn't sleepy Joe Biden demand equalization? In that this war is far more important to Europe than it is to us. We have a big, beautiful ocean as separation. On top of this, Zelensky admits that half of the money we sent him is missing. He refuses to have elections, is very low in Ukrainian polls. And the only thing he was good at was playing Biden like a fiddle. A dictator without elections, Zelensky better move fast or he is not going to have a country left. In the meantime, we are successfully negotiating an end to the war with Russia, something I'll admit only Trump and the Trump administration can do. Biden never tried. Europe has failed to bring peace, and Zelensky probably wants to keep the gravy train going. I love Ukraine, but Zelensky has done a terrible job. His country is shattered, and millions have unnecessarily died, and so it continues. Almost nothing about this is correct. Almost nothing about what is being said here is true or factual or actual. First of all, America has not spent near $350 billion. I think the U.S. aid packet that was signed into law was around $186 billion. I'm not sure where he's getting the $350 billion number. I couldn't find it anywhere. I think he just kind of pulled it out of his ass, which he does a lot. But that's just not true. And again, this and other comments Trump has made to suggest Zelensky started the war is asinine. Putin started this war when he sent in tanks, guns, bombs, missiles, drones, ammunition, guns, etc. into the Donbass region, trying to take Ukraine as a whole. They tried to drive straight to Kiev, okay? This was not Zelensky. This was Putin. Putin started it. Putin is responsible for it. Putin could end it tomorrow if he wanted to, but he does not want to, okay? We will get some of our money back. Not all of the money we have given to them is without clause. We have something called a lend-lease program where we lend it. It's a loan. They do pay us back. Granted, that's not all of the money. That's not even a majority of the money, but it is a sizable portion of the money. Okay, so the idea that we get nothing back is simply not true. And in regards, we gain benefits from Ukraine standing. If Ukraine falls, that is going to have a ripple effect that is going to affect the American people and the American consumer negatively in a wide variety of ways. It's also going to make the world geopolitical situation far less stable, far less safe, and it's going to encourage not just Putin, but any other wannabe dictator, warlord, conqueror to start seizing land from their neighbors. This cannot be allowed to stand, okay? And while, yes, we do have oceans and we are not under immediate threat of physical invasion, it will hurt if Ukraine loses this war, okay? calling Zelensky a dictator because he has paused elections, which is a power that has been granted to him by their constitution, by the way. We can argue whether he should or should not have done that, but it is clearly a legal means that he's breaking no Ukrainian laws in doing so. And there are some good arguments to say that a country that is currently under invasion, what would be the logistics of holding an election while you're being bombed? What about the people who are in occupied territory? Are they going to be allowed to vote? Can you trust the votes from people who have guns to their heads? There are so many logistical limitations to this that there is a very good argument for keeping elections paused in these kinds of times. To call Zelensky a dictator is simply not true. I don't agree with everything that Ukraine has done. I think Ukraine is not without fault here, but again, let's put the blame where it lies, on Putin. Putin is doing this. Putin is driving this. And to act as if Putin wants peace is asinine. To make a deal with Putin is to make a deal with the scorpion. You're going to get stung. He's not going to honor his word. We understand that, correct? We understand that any peace deal made with only Putin without real guarantees of security. And what I mean by real guarantees of security, joining NATO. If Ukraine joins NATO, that would be a guarantee of security. Or, minus that, having U.S. forces as well as United Nations forces stationed on the border, whatever borders they draw up between Ukraine and Russia, and have that for a long period of time. I'm talking years, gang. Okay, as a guarantee that if Russia comes in, United States will protect them if Russia breaks the agreement. That would be a security guarantee. That would be fair. Would be something I could get behind. Okay, it doesn't have to join NATO. There is other options here, but NATO is probably the simplest one. Yeah, it's sad, gang. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking that Ukraine is being backstabbed right now by Trump, by America. We have failed Ukraine. We are failing Ukraine. We've lost the Cold War, gang. We have lost the Cold War. Cold War II, to be clear. We've forfeited. We've given up. We are purposefully and intentionally seceding from the world stage. And I don't think you guys understand what knock-on effects that's going to have. We are going to live in a worse world. We are going to live in a more dangerous world. We are going to live in a more expensive world. We're going to live in a world where we have less. What comes next, you will not like. You will not like it at all. One of the reasons that we are able to have global trade, which drives down prices for consumers, is because of our power and influence on the world stage over trade routes. And ceding that to China and Russia is only going to drive up prices for American consumers. And in fact, the ability to intervene in cases like Ukraine is going to be crippled because no one will trust us. Why would they? Taiwan, I'm looking at you. Taiwan is reliant on the idea that if China tries to take Taiwan, that the U.S. will intervene and will stop them. We have a red line, if you will, that if China tries to militarily invade Taiwan, America will come and will stop them. But why should China believe that we're actually going to do that if we let Ukraine fall? If we just basically give it to Putin? Why should Taiwan make any deals with us, right? If they can't trust us to stand by our word. Why should any other country? And so what will happen is countries like China and countries like India and Iran and Russia are going to gain a boost on the world stage. Okay. They are going to gain more influence because when America withdraws its influence, they come in. And I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, who would you rather have influence on the world stage? Would you rather America or would you rather China? Who do you want running the world? Do you want it to be America or do you want it to be China? Those are your choices, realistically. Those are your choices. F, did we die? Did the stream die? Up on my end. Oh, no, sorry. Okay. Just black-pilled. Yeah, I am worried. I am very worried about the future of this nation. NATO is the most successful alliance in the history of the world. No NATO country has been invaded since the founding of NATO. I don't know if that continues if the U.S. withdraws from NATO. And I think that there is a very real risk, a very real chance that Trump will try to do just that. I don't know if he will succeed, frankly. But the fact that he will try is dangerous to us, to Americans. So what do we do, gang? What do we do? Well, we prepare. Understand that this is going to happen. Okay? Unless we can get a Congress and a Senate that is anti-Trump, and the next chance we have for doing that is 2 years from now. It's going to be a long 2 years, right? A lot of damage could be done in 2 years. Until we get a Congress and a Senate that will stand up against Trump, the only thing we can do really is two things. One, prepare to make that happen so when elections do come around that we're able to get what we need done, right? That Democrats are actually able to win. And two, personally, on a personal level, you need to prepare. You need to start getting stockpiles. You need a food storage supply. You absolutely do, okay? You need to start preparing for prices to skyrocket because they absolutely will. You need to, if you have foreign friends or foreign family, anyone living in another country, right, especially Eastern Europe, bring them home. Get them back to American soil, okay? It's not going to be safe there anymore. If you have travel plans, do them now, okay? Because in a year's time, it's going to be much less safe to travel. These are all going to be the results of Ukraine's capitulation. If Ukraine loses, these are all going to be the results. If Trump continues on his isolationist bent, these are all going to be the results. And you need to prepare for it. I'm just being honest with you, gang. And you can. It's not the end of the world. We've been through shit before, okay? But yes, start stockpiling, start saving, start buying what you need now, start getting a food storage supply. All these things. Prepare. Yeah, fear is a mind killer. There's some healthy fear one must have, right? In any situation. But yeah, fear is a mind killer. We still don't have a strategy other than anti-Trump? What do you mean? We need to figure out a way to win electorally. But I'm talking in the sense of what we can do now, right? What we can do today. Okay. And what you can do today is, again, save up. You're going to need the money. You're going to need the money, gang. Is there any questions? Oh, yeah, Zephyr, did you still want to talk? Sorry, I left that a little long. I apologize. But yeah, Zephyr, if you want to jump backstage. Sorry, I apologize. It took a little long for me to rant. Mexican Air Force says, why don't we start a WIC meme coin and rug pull for an emergency fund? No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to steal from people. What? it's man, I don't know. Here's the deal. Okay, I'm going to be real with you guys. Since Zephyr ain't here, I'll have a little more time to talk. I don't know if anyone's going to listen to me. I feel like one of the reasons that we're in the state we are is because no one's listened to me. I don't know if the moderate voices in Democrat politics, I don't know if I have a place there anymore. I'm going to be real. I know that the average Democratic voter says that they want to be more moderate, and we have a poll to show that has come out recently. I think it was was it a Gallup poll or a Pew poll? I forget. Zephyr, hi.
Hey, how's it going?
I was just talking about, and I'll finish this, but I wanted to drag you in, so I didn't forget you were here, right? But just let me finish for a moment. Yeah, I don't know. I worry that the people who are going to be running the Democratic election machine, the Democratic messaging machine, are going to be the same people who've been doing it for the past 8 years. And that can't happen if we want to win. It cannot happen if we want to win. We need a change, and we need to start listening to more moderate voices. We've been going more and more extreme, and we've been playing footsie with extremists in our party for far too long. We need to start listening to the moderate voices, but I don't know if we're actually going to, because it's so tempting for people to want blood, right? It's so tempting for people to be bad, and they want to do something, quote unquote, right? You need to do something. Planes are falling out of the sky, blah, 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 blah. Blame everything on Trump, blah, 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 blah. We can't. We need something far more effective than that. It's not working, and it hasn't worked. We need to go back to moderation. We need to pick 3 issues that the American people care about and that we can run on successfully. Make them pocketbook issues. Make them moral issues and stick to them. Ones that are popular with the American people. And we can find those. I know we can. Think about it, though. Okay, Zephyr, you're here. What do you want to talk about, buddy?
Yeah, I just wanted to discuss some of the points brought up today. It won't take long, probably like 5 minutes. I know you're busy. Where are you going to for vacation? Do you mind sharing?
Florida. That's where my family
Florida,
is.
nice. Cool. Yeah, sorry. Like, it probably seems a bit hollow to go back to that
You're all good.
South American cartel conversation after the Ukraine and Democrat spiel, but
You're fine.
yeah, I think one of the big points I wanted to discuss is I think where DITSO and Gibbs and even you, I think to some extent, were missing the point is that DITSO was coming from a very sort of Latin American perspective, and one of the bigger problems when it comes to Americans discussing international affairs is the unwillingness to look at things from a different perspective. So, for example, when you talk about the cartels, obviously they are, spreading like drugs, getting people addicted to drugs, using illegal means to get drugs into the United States. I mean, they're living horrible lives in Latin America. They're like from poor, like not poor countries, but like poor neighborhoods, poor communities. Their governments are corrupt. They don't invest in their people, right? They don't care if some white guy in America dies, if they can get a mansion. right? And these are the hard truths that like Americans have to deal with. Like, I don't know what caused, like maybe it's just like what caused the governments to be corrupt there. I don't know what caused the economic disparity there. But at the end, like maybe I guess DITSO was arguing that a significant portion of it was from American intervention. But yeah, those are the realities of the world that America and generally the first world has to deal with. Like if you talk about in Ukraine, like we are seeing full frontal nudity of half of the country, unwilling to see what Ukraine is going through right now. And this kind of like mentality change, I just like like on Ukraine, it's probably easier to see because okay, it's like a war and you have soldiers fighting each other, so it's good to pick sides. But when it comes to the cartels, it's kind of more gray because you don't see the economic, how economic disparities and economic injustices / just lack of money can cause these things to happen as well. And it all eventually comes back and circles up to the countries that are the first world countries, which are in this current era are Europe and America. And yeah, this is one of the, so yeah, obviously DITSO knows way more than I do about the specific issues. But yeah, coming from a third world country myself, I just feel like this needs to be brought up and kind of just having a lens perspective and shift in the thinking process. Like let's stop thinking about only Americans. Obviously, we should also think about Americans, you know, being in America, but also try and empathize / look at it from a different perspective and see if we can come up with a middle ground, come up with better solutions for these issues.
I guess the tension comes when what's good for America isn't good for the other country and vice versa, right? And then I think there is a good argument for putting America first in that case. But the problem I find with the America First crowd is that their solutions here aren't good for America. They're bad, actually. And they're going to hurt us. And we have to recognize that we are on a world stage now, right? We are. And globalism is a thing, whether we like it or not. And those who engage with it are going to have more success than those who don't. And I think that you were correct to say that it's a complex problem and we do have to look at it like that. But yeah, that's what I have to say on that. Is there anything else you want to talk about, Zephyr?
Yeah, just that. I was just hoping like I could sort of, you know, I saw a lot of people in chat who just assume that DITSO is anti-America, which, okay, yeah, his rhetoric can probably use a little bit of work, but
Yeah.
I'm hoping that, yeah, I'm able to sort of bring it down a peg and sort of help get. I'm not speaking on behalf of DITSO. I'm probably only speaking on my behalf, but that is probably how I would have made this argument if I were involved in this conversation.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here, buddy, and thank you for calling in.
Awesome.
Peace
Thank
out.
you. Good.
Okay, our built environment. I see you there, but it's after 8. I do have to go. I am hosting call-ins almost certainly tomorrow. So tune in, gang, and yeah, we'll talk to you guys later. With that, peace out, Girl Scouts. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.